On the subject of forced marriages and fixed marriages, there's a story. The best way to explain it is in an example, but it's called "Someone Like You."
Couldn't stay away, I couldn't fight it. I had hoped you'd see my face and that you'd be reminded that for me it isn't over. Never mind, I'll find someone like you.
This is what I call it, "Someone Like You." You remember the Adele song called "Someone Like You," where she's in love with a guy and she realizes he's fallen in love with someone else, and she's so heartbroken she tells him she'll find someone like him because she's heartbroken, and clearly she's still in love with him. In the example I have, there was a young girl who fell in love with an older man, twice her age, and she would become quite fanatic and quite obsessive about him because they wouldn't let her near him. In the beginning, it was fine. Her parents would argue with them, but the parents came from a group of people who were part of a criminal activity, and the parents didn't want the public to know, and the guy that her daughter fell in love with was a very nice man. And so in horror, they did everything they could to get her away from this guy because she was very obsessive about him. She really loved him and she really wanted him and she really felt she needed him. And she used to argue a lot with him, her sisters and her mother and her father, about why can't she have him. And previously she was a lesbian, so this made it really awkward because she'd fallen in love with her first heterosexual man and she didn't want to let him go. That was the man she loved and that's the man she wanted to keep. Their goal was to do anything they could to put her off him. So they became quite obsessed about it themselves. They called her obsessed, but I think they were the more obsessed ones. And so they brought in lots of young men. They paid off therapists with a lot of money, brought in young men, and the young men were to seduce her. And they were handsome and everything the young guys were today. Party goers, took drugs, whatever. Didn't work. They weren't what she wanted, or things would go wrong, or she'd get scared them, or she'd find out something about them that was wrong, or she felt that God got her away from them. So in that situation, they just kept going through guys. And she ended up marrying a guy that was, it was a fixed marriage, where the mother fixed him. And he ended up raping her and abusing her in the unnatural way, anally. So in horror, they split up, and she continued on her own for a while. And they brought in more therapists, put her on more drugs, and as the time went by, her anxiety and her fears grew and grew and grew. She was told that the anxiety and fears were because of the man that she'd fallen in love with was a terrible person, and she knew he was a terrible person inside. She was terrified of him, and so in great fear she kept away from him, even though she was madly in love with him. So her heart was madly in love with him, but her mind was full of terror of him, and which left her very confused. And that just caused more anxiety because here she was going out with guys, trying to fit at the picture of, I'm happy with these guys. Look, Mum, I've got the guy that you suggested or whatever, or he fits what you think I should have. He's young, he's handsome, he's hung, he's got a car, he's got a job, he's doing well. And then she'd see that guy that she was in love with, and a lot of it would fall apart because it was deep within her. That the love was within her. The talking out of love was in her mind. So what the parents were trying to do was find someone like the guy she loved, but who was dishonest. So they would get guys who were, because she obviously couldn't go with a guy, a good man, male because if she told him about her past, then he might go to the police. So what the daughter didn't realize was every single relationship she was in, and even the sisters who were helping the mother manipulate the daughter into a fixed marriage, all of them had fixed marriages, fixed relationships. And they didn't realize it. And so the whole idea was to keep all the daughters under control and also their friends' children under control because the children were part of the criminal group. So the children knew everything that had gone on in the criminal group by being part of it, and therefore any one of them could have gone to the police. There were potentially a whole bunch of telltales, and which brought a lot of fear into the parents. And years went by, but they kept trying to get this girl into a relationship. And she kept getting into relationships and she kept seeing guys she was in love with. And it caused her great panic and anxiety. And the anxiety was she wanted to be with him. She was terrified of him, but at the same time, she was desperately wanting him because she loved him. So it was kind of like an everlasting love. It was a very deep love. There's that, I was telling my neighbour about that woman, that man who fell in love with his wife. I wasn't in love with his wife. They married 50 years maybe. She died. And that night, that evening, he went around and he shook all the family's hands, gave the girls a kiss, and told everyone he loved them. And he said, "I'm going now. I'm going to be with her. I love you all," and all that sort of stuff. And then that night when he went to bed, they were all like, "Oh, the silly old man's lost it, you know. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He thinks he's going to die tonight." And the next morning when they went in to wake him up, he was dead. He couldn't, he said he couldn't live the rest of his life without her. He loved her so much. And this girl's love that I'm talking about in the story, Someone Like You story, her love was like that. She couldn't live without the man she loves. So she keeps trying to obey her parents because she's a very much a people pleaser and follow the flow and do what society does and do what everyone does. Everyone tells her to do. But her love was eternal. And that was her problem. She went on to bad relationships, immoral relationships, bad relationships, and everything that she didn't want until finally, in the end, someone realized that the man was older than her. So they thought, oh, we'll get her into an older man relationship around the same age of the man she's in love with. They figured she might have a fetish for old men, when in reality she still was in love with the same man. And what the guys would do is whenever she was with them and she saw the man she loved, they would say, "Hey Tim, it's him, quick, get away, he's get in the car or get in the house, he's evil, he's going to get you." And in fear she'd do it. But inside in the car she's thinking it was her body and her mind saying, "It's him, it's the man I love." And her head's telling her she hates him. So with that eternal love, they were just totally messing up her mind and trying to. And so the older man now is he's got money, he's got everything, the comforts that she'd ever want, but he would have been around twice her age. So they were trying to still give her someone like the man she originally loves. And but he was a better price in the materialistic sense. The man she loves has a pool house, has no car, has a smaller wage, and it doesn't have the power and the middle class status the other man has. So they were giving her someone like him, the man she loved. And as time went by, she got more and more seduced into thinking, this is the man for me. All the younger guys didn't work, all the in crowd didn't work, all her friends trying to get her into relationships didn't work. She was either abused or she found out it was wrong or found out bad things about them. And in the end, well, they walked out. And in the end, she ended up with this older man. But the thing with the older man, because it was a seduction racket and it was a fixed marriage, by painting the picture of him being, it's like taking two photographs, one of the man she was deeply in love with, and then Mr. Perfect. Mr. Perfect was painted to be like the man she loved, but a far better picture in the materialistic sense, because the criminal group had a lot of money. And to make him Mr. Perfect, they did everything they could and heavily seduced her. And because there were some of the other girls in the criminal group were going about crazy too. They were having issues, not crazy, but anxious, depressed, and were losing the plot. And they wanted to marry them all off, and they were using this first girl as a guide on how they could quickly sort out any other females who went like that or males in the future, get them into marriage, get them into someone like the one they'd fallen in love with, get them into a strong relationship, at least at the start. Now, because the girl was anxious, had mental issues, was extremely needy, and very much a people pleaser, in this new relationship, the guy formed her into, he was a narcissist, and he was being paid and told to keep utter control of her so that she didn't go out and go to the police or anything. You know the story in America of the people that, the man and the woman who abducted the young girl and at a young age, and they had sex with her for years, and then when she grew up into an adult, they let her go out and get the groceries and stuff, go out and do things in society, and she'd always come back because of the Stockholm syndrome and gaslighting her for years. She came to believe that her only true friends were not her family, but were these people that had taken her in. So she'd been convinced that they were not her family, so it was someone like her family. You get what I'm getting at? They become in her mind to replace her family, to be loved, to be cherished, to be thankful for, and to do things in society for. And she didn't need chains. She didn't need to be tied to a pole. She didn't need to be held behind bars. She was willingly convinced to stay. And she did. And all the time she could escape, she didn't. And so the same with this girl. They want her in that kind of relationship, in the relationship with the Mr. Perfect, and who from then on would start sexually abusing her with mysticism, with his version of one, because he liked to see her hurt, and to abuse her and do all sorts of filthy things to her because she was so obedient. And like a lot of women, when they get into relationships and they think that he's the man she loves, she will allow him to hurt her. The pain becomes so normal in the sex relationship, and him walking around the house smacking her on the backside. He goes out to eat and demands when he gets home she's standing there naked at the door, and stuff like that. It becomes so normal in her life, she believes this is life, this is what life should be, and sex should be available to him whenever he wanted it. And then when he brought someone home to enjoy sex with, she had to service his friends. And so someone like me became someone extremely unlike the man she loved. But by then it was too late. So that's a manipulative tactic that people do. And you'd probably only understand it if you were in that situation and you realized that you were getting the perfect picture, or what seemed like the perfect picture, and to your mind you were happy, but your heart wasn't. You just said something here saying, this is not right. I'm going to get everything I ever wanted, but this is not right. But it's like they say, people will trick you and manipulate you, and they will give you everything up until the point when they've got what they want. And then they'll pull it all away because they've got what they want out of you. And what they did with this girl was, once she married the guy and he was able to mentally control her, from then on, she had a life that was the absolute opposite of what she ever wanted. And freedom was never gained, and love was never had, and happiness was not her life. So it's another thing to think about. Just think of the song "Someone Like You" by Adele.